Hi, folks. Matt Frederick here. I'm here today with Robert Chezes, and it's going to be an exciting conversation. I got to tell you that I've been an investor for about 40 years. I've started with residential, commercial, multifamily, and into land development. Today, I'm going to speak to a mortgage agent who I respect. I consider him an associate and a friend, and we have a number of these conversations on a weekly basis. So I want to invite you guys in today into our conversation. Robert has been investing for a few years now as well. So not only is he a mortgage agent, he's also an investor. Hey, Robert, take a second just to give me a little bit about your background.
Well, sure, yeah. I've been investing for over 15 years. I've done all types of real estate regarding either commercial or residential. I like in my practice to help out new investors to buy that first property. I think it's great. I have a passion for it. I've done some development, small scale, using basically houses around the city, converting them into new apartments, renting them out, potentially selling one or two, trying to hold on to them as well. And with the right strategy, I found that you can find the cash flow, you can do it. You just have to have the right knowledge and systems, and you can do it.
And let me ask you a question. How did you get into investing?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny enough, the first house that I lived in was actually a duplex. We lived in one apartment. There was another couple that lived upstairs. And the landlord was a real estate agent. And this goes back almost 20 years. And she was like, Robert, if you're ever interested in buying a house or so forth, I can show you something. She actually, so she took us around and we made a deal actually in the end to buy the house that we were renting.
Wow.
So that was our first property. It actually had already an apartment in it, and I became a landlord from day one.
Well, it's amazing. And that's a good story. And it's interesting that you got your first mortgage, right? Why is it so hard for investors to buy more than one house?
Listen, it's a great question. I see it a lot. I find that, there's probably a few things that unfortunately they're not doing right from the outset. So they get that first property, they go back to the bank, they want to buy more, and they hit a bit of a wall because it's become so much tougher from the traditional banks to get that mortgage, especially on the rental side.
Yeah.
So I tell folks, listen, if your plan is some people are just happy with one, but if you want to grow that portfolio, you got to be thinking ahead. You got to try to line up either lines of credit on your home or taking out potentially a larger mortgage in the anticipation of getting that bigger property. So if you do that, you can set yourself up, because I find that once they try to do it the other way around, they run into that wall. I think another big thing for people is the fact that they don't have proper systems
Right.
in place, right? They just became a landlord and they think they know what they're doing and so forth, but handling tenants, houses do need some maintenance. And if they don't have a good system in place, a good team in place, it frustrates them. They get these calls in the night, and they don't want to, exasperate that. A lot of my clients, are professionals, and they have busy lives. They want to diversify their income, but they don't necessarily want to deal with all those. So I think getting the right systems in place is so important. And Matthew, I think also probably the top thing that I would say, and this speaks to you as well, is education and mentorship.
Yes.
I couldn't agree more. Like, those are such important things that, help you get over that hump, give you someone to talk to, someone to, help you build that confidence that you can go further.
I believe systems is so important because it's a way of duplicating yourself. So real estate is really a mini you. And if you don't have a system, you're actually living in that mini you situation, meaning you want to duplicate yourself.
Yeah.
And if you don't have systems, you're not duplicating yourself. You're actually just being a slave to the property. So that's brilliant. And at the same time, training is important as well. I take training, you take training. And a lot of people think, well, even when they come to me, they say, the people that you teach, are they like brand new people? No, not really. A lot of people that I teach are very seasoned veterans. They're good at what they do. But sometimes we need someone to hold us accountable
Yeah.
and to, allow us to look within. So I think that's very, very important. Now, obviously, when it comes to mortgages, people make mistakes. And when they make a mistake, it can shut them down. What are some of an example of mistakes that somebody makes that just shuts them down right away when it comes to trying to get a mortgage?
I would say number one, the biggest mistake that people make is credit. Is not being careful with their credit. And what I mean by that, there's truly two things to think about. Number one, you have to think about credit, the utilization rate, which is something that is basically looking at the total amount of debt that you can carry, and you want to keep that under a certain percentage on that one card. Some people think, oh, I don't want to keep using all of my cards. It's actually smarter to actually use a few cards as opposed to just one and load it up all the way. So there are strategies to use credit effectively that you want to be careful about. And I just had this case the other day. I had a great client. She makes a great income, highly, regarded professional. And what I found in her report, unfortunately, is that 4 years ago, she had a dispute with her phone company and didn't pay the bill. It was maybe $500, but that followed her. That ruined her credit, in a sense, dropped her score way down, and was able to, in the end, successfully get her that mortgage for the property. But it definitely took a lot of explaining, and it definitely held it up. So, I would say, folks, be careful with your credit. Learn how to use it effectively, and don't if you're thinking of getting into the investing game or staying in it, don't worry or don't try to fight even small amounts. Even if you're in the right, let's say, pay them first, argue it afterwards. Don't let it go into collection or write off or so forth. It's just not worth it.
It's interesting because I would think that it would be a young investor or a young person in their 20s, or maybe somebody who's having difficulties financially that go into credit issues. But what you're saying is that somebody who is even a professional with years and years of experience and making good income. You know what? Explain the logic behind that. Why does that happen to people like that?
Well, I just think that, they essentially are either too busy to look at it. They're not looking effectively. Or they feel that, it's something that can be solved, that they can look at. So I don't know. I find that, busy professionals or so forth sometimes can get tripped up by these little things. And even though all their other accounts are paid current, still has a great effect.
And then you also mentioned that this person was trying to fight the system. So it's not a fight worth doing sometimes then.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So having someone like you sit down and talk to them about what they're doing, you kind of help them to know what to work on, what not to work on ahead of time.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, I would say, like, coming, if you're thinking of looking at investing property, very important to, look at your credit in advance. Look at also, how you can fund it. So have a plan in place. Basically. Yeah.
So a mortgage is probably a major thing in someone's life. And as an investor, I have many mortgages.
Yeah.
I want to pay those things off as soon as possible.
Right.
And, the problem with an investor, when you pay the mortgage off, you get another mortgage and another mortgage and another mortgage. So we live with, leverage.
Right.
But how would somebody pay off a mortgage sooner? What are some steps that they would consider?
Yeah. So, a lot of clients, of course, especially if they own their own home, they're all looking to pay that mortgage off faster. In Canada, that's non-deductible debt.
Right.
So, I would say that there's probably a few different ways depending on where they are in their real estate journey. So if you're just starting out and you're looking to, get your first property and, get into the market, I would say try to buy a property that has more than one suite or able to put a suite in that property.
Right.
And the reason for that is, say you create, your young guy or girl, or even a couple as well. If you can, say live in the basement of that suite and rent out the main floor, well, now you have some income coming in.
Right.
Someone's helping you to pay down that
Right.
mortgage,
Right.
and you can slowly, pay that off faster than just having your own income to carry it. I mean, there's a common term for that. It's called house hacking today.
Right. Right.
And I think it's it's a great way to start. Again, if you're further along, and you want to buy your first property, we run a couple of seminars about people trying to, how to acquire their first property, what are the benefits of that, and how to pay down their own mortgage, and within 10 or 15 years. And how do we do that is basically, by leveraging your own home, the equity in your own home, buying that first property, having that mortgage, something that would cash flow. They don't have to put more money into it. The rental income is covering all the expenses.
Right.
This was much easier to do years ago before the big before the big jump in rates, right? It's still possible. You may have to go a little bit outside of your area to find it, but it's definitely still possible, especially if you have more than one unit in the property. And that will slowly pay it down. Once you've paid that down, you're looking at over maybe, 15 or 20 years, let's say. Now you've paid that off, you can leverage that. You can sell that property. You've got the money, you can pay down your own mortgage.
Good news. The Bank of Canada just reduced its rate. What are your thoughts about that? Are we ready to jump back into the game, or do we have to be cautious? What are your thoughts?
Wow. Yeah. Everyone is talking about it. You'll see there's realtors on TikTok telling you to jump back into the game. I think, everyone has an opinion of where it's going to go. It's really hard to tell. I think, listen, it's great for the marketplace, just from a psychological perspective, that we've sort of like crossed over. Now we're on our way down in the cycle, meaning that we're going to get several rate cuts over the next several years. We don't know how many. Definitely a few are priced in, up to even 8 cuts over 2 years.
Right.
Let's see if we get there. But looking at the short term, I think it definitely helps the marketplace. It gives us a bit of a psychological bump. How much that's going to affect affordability and pricing, not that much. It probably will help people sort of get into the market now a little bit, but it's, let's see how it plays out. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
I am getting, though, a lot of calls from clients that want to think about switching now from a fixed mortgage payment to a variable one, where their payments are going down. And that was, something that just a few months ago nobody wanted. So now that conversation has flipped, and we're talking about variable rates again.
Interesting. Robert, let's switch gears for a moment. When it comes to retirement, when it comes to financing and retirement, what can kill someone's retirement plan fastest or get them there sooner? What's your secret?
So I think it's a 2-part question. I mean, number one, what can kill it? I think we touched on this before, Matthew, is that, if your credit is definitely impacted, we can still get you that mortgage, but you'll probably have to go down to an alternative lender. So you're knocked down a level.
Right.
And, that comes with higher fees, higher costs. And it takes time to build that score back up.
Right.
So what really happens is that you're paying higher costs. You're not paying as much of your own mortgage down. And, you're locked into this for, 1 to 3 years. And that really is going to slow down your retirement plan if your credit is definitely impacted.
Right.
I think what can speed it up,
Yes.
though, is if you get to the point, if you look at it also by starting early, right? And by that, I mean, starting early in paying down your mortgage, but also potentially even being the bank.
Being the bank.
And, I'm finding that, clients want to access their equity and so forth, that they can lend it out.
Yes.
There is a lot of demand today for private solutions for clients. Canadians, are looking for either to, grow their portfolio, or even just handle their own expenses. There's lots of opportunity for lending on the private side. So what I found is those successful people that have sped up their retirement is they're finding other sources of income.
See.
So and some of it is coming from lending out privately as well.
Interesting. And are you finding that seniors, people who are, let's say, 65 to about 75, are open to tapping into some of their equity? Or is that a very difficult conversation for them? I mean, they should understand if they lend it out, it's almost like an annuity, but are you thinking that's an easier thing to explain to them or a harder thing to explain to them?
So yeah, I mean, it really depends on the couple. Like, so, what, some of them, a lot of clients want, what was popular before with, downsizing and so forth. The idea that you had to then sell your property, move into a smaller place and so forth. Today, I'm finding a lot of people want to hold on to their house,
Right.
and they're finding ways to tap the equity in their house to fund their retirement. So that, what does that mean? It means either using the equity to lend out and get income in through either a mortgage investment corporation, or even GICs, or having something as reverse mortgages. So reverse
Really?
mortgages have become more and more popular for that segment of the market, because they want what's called aging in place. They want, the services, they want to stay within their own communities, and they want to be able to, and the way they're doing that is by using their homes for retirement.
See, that's very interesting. I think I'll begin to speak to, let's say, property owners who've bought their property 20 years ago, 30 years ago, doubled, tripled in value. There's equity in there. And some of them might want an additional dwelling unit in the backyard. These things are not financed by banks per se.
Yeah.
And someone's going to have a HELOC. So I want to have that conversation with you in the real world, where I will bring these people to you. And what's your thoughts about that?
Yeah. Zoning changes have been taking place. If you haven't heard, we have a housing shortage here in the country, or at least in Ontario. Cities municipalities are definitely in favor of, more density on people's property. Having a suite or garden suite, as they call it, coach house, in their, as part of their dwelling, or additional ADU is the official term, is really popular now, as, again, a source of income. Multi-generational homes are more popular, and having your parents there with you, or even several family members close but not within the same house, so that you've got a little bit of space, or even rental, as we said. So those are popular today, and financing them. There's a couple of ways. So yes, easiest route, I would say, is them going with a HELOC, home equity line of credit, if they can afford to do so, if there's enough room to do so. Another source is potentially a construction mortgage, which they're only advancing the funds as you go through the stages of the process.
Interesting.
And finally, there's lots of private solutions that are coming up today. What's really, I guess, important is that, okay, they're saying to you, I'm putting my money into this. Can I get it back out? Like, can I refinance my property once I've added all this value? And up until recently, it's been tougher. But today, major banks that I can name are also now accepting the value of these properties. So adding the value to the overall value of the home and giving you a mortgage based on the total value. So including that amount as well. And that's happening today. They're seeing potentially sales of these properties. So they're able to, I just read in the news, an ADU in Toronto sold for $1.1 million.
Wow.
Just last week.
Yep.
That's the highest sale recorded. It was, it blew people away what the potential is for their land and what is possible.
That's very important because appraisers need to be able to appraise based on comparables. And the more ADUs that sell or get refinanced, now they have comparables to work with.
Exactly.
I think you mentioned that to me a few weeks ago when we were talking about a bit about ADUs, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Now, let's switch gears again to, let's say, business. Someone's got a business and they're looking to do financing, or someone is self-employed.
Yeah.
And they're looking to finance.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that? Is it easier today? Is it harder?
It's never easier.
Right.
It's not as straightforward. But there are programs that the lenders want to, if you've got a running business, you've got a healthy business, but you don't pay yourself a lot of money, then you can still do it. I mean, the accountant, if you have a good accountant, the accountant and the mortgage broker, they're sort of like at opposite sides of the spectrum. So, you can have a great accountant, your mortgage broker is going to make it harder for them or for the lender. But having said that, there are programs that they can access. So, you can use the retained earnings within your company as a source of potential funding, that they'll consider that for the loan itself. You can gross up parts of your income. These are all, factors that'll help any self-employed person buy a property at a decent rate of mortgage.
You've answered a lot of questions in a lot of different spectrums. Now I want to ask you a bit of a personal question. When it comes to advice for the investor, when it comes to mortgages, what's one pearl of knowledge, something very tiny that people just overlook, that if they would consider, all of a sudden, it'll make things a little bit easier, either when they come to you or when they're looking at a property?
Yeah, Matthew, I would say in this case, one pearl for sure is probably tenacity. You're going to get a lot of no's. There's going to be a lot of naysayers on this journey to buying investment property. But I would say that what's going to get you through is grit. And you're going to knock on a lot of doors and you're going to get a lot of no's, and you got to keep going until someone gives you a yes.
Yes. Yes, I agree. Even when I became a developer, I couldn't find people in Ontario to help me with the process. I actually flew all the way to Alberta to find a team, and what did they want?
Yeah.
For me to raise money.
Yeah.
And I helped them raise money. And in lieu, they taught me how to build, how to become a developer. Because before that, I knew how to build, but I was never inside the office doing the site plan approval.
Right.
So that tenacity makes a lot of sense. And I've seen that in my life.
Right.
Is there any other things that you've done in your life where all of a sudden they said, no, you can't do it, and you find yourself doing it outside of the real estate business?
I'm terrible at thinking on the spot.
It was something in the jewelry business. Like how you're able to tell if something is real or not real, and then just relate it back to real estate.
Not all. I mean, it's not all.
Because keep in mind, these things we don't have to use it entirely.
No, I know. I think the tenacity thing is really good. It's really important. As when I see the difference between the success and failure, for sure. But
Okay. I have one for you. I'm going to throw.
yeah,
I'm going to throw. I'm going to throw on the spot with this question. Okay.
yeah, I don't
Okay.
know
So you ready?
why.
Ready? Okay.
You're gonna throw me on the spot.
Yeah. Because it's more to be thrown on the spot, right? Hey, Robert. Hi, I'm sorry. So 1, 2, 3. Robert, you told me that you were in the jewelry business in the past. No, but first of all, you okay with me mention that?
No, I don't want to go there actually, because
Okay,
I think
okay,
it sort of
okay,
muddies the water.
okay. I won't go there. Okay. I'll do it without that. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll
Okay.
go 1 to 3.
Go 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
1 to 3. Robert, I got a question to ask you.
Okay.
When it comes to mortgages,
Yeah.
and getting mortgages,
Yes.
I think in the industry, I was a mortgage agent for a number of years myself.
Yes.
No longer practicing.
Yes.
Fraud, crime,
Yes.
dishonesty,
Yes.
phony paperwork,
Yes.
just people not being who they really are.
Okay.
How has that affected the industry? And what do you do to make sure that that's not something that's affecting you on a daily basis?
You know, that's a great question. And we had this topic that came up in our brokerage as well, because the industry can get a bad rap. You know, there is been a lot of cases of that. So knowing your client, like we say that, and you really have to take it to heart. And that means you have to dig a bit.
Right.
You know, you have to ask some of those uncomfortable questions. You're there to you know, help them, but you want to make sure that you're doing it ethically, you're doing the right, you're finding the right solution, you're dealing with the right people. So you really have to ask the right questions. There's also, you know, you also have to, you know, be thorough and, you know, and check your documents, look at it carefully. So I would say really important is knowing your client.
So for you, knowing your client is not just a form, it's actually a lifestyle.
Yeah, it's definitely a lifestyle for sure. You know, you have to be curious, you have to ask questions, and you have to you know, be up to date on like what's happening.
And interesting enough, that just parallels into everything else. Even when we're doing construction, if I'm talking to a potential contractor,
Yeah.
not just what I see on paper, not just when I see a reference, not just looking at past work, I have to get an understanding of who this person is to see who they are. Because guess what? What I do with them today is going to affect me for the next 25 years. And obviously what someone does in their credit, if they feel as though, hey, no one's watching me, I'm getting away with something today, no one's going to know, you know, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, the bank might come back to them and all of a sudden their world changes.
Yeah.
Have you come across people, or have you seen people who, you know, crossed the line a number of times and all of a sudden now reaping the rewards of that?
Matthew, I know that you work with a lot of investor groups. You know, you talk to them. They seek you out for your knowledge, your experience, and also sort of what strategy to use in this marketplace today, what's working, what's not working. You know, what do you what do you find is what do you find investors today are really looking for in this climate?
See, I believe investors look at it almost like a herd. So they might say, you know what? Canada's terrible. Let's go to the US. That's a herd mentality. Ontario's terrible. Let's go to Alberta. Herd mentality. People don't realize something, that the US, Alberta, love both places. I invest in both places. I invest in Ontario as well. They all have their good and bad areas. You know, there's always ups and downs. I always say that when I'm in Ontario, when I check my garbage can, there's a raccoon. When I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona, when I check my garbage can, there's a rattlesnake. In Florida, Cape Coral, there's an alligator.
Right.
So there's always good and bad for different areas. So what we have to understand is sometimes you don't have to leave your city to go to another city to find something better. If you look at your city, you can divide it into 4 areas. There's an area that's always expanding, one that's declining, one that's flat, and you can pick certain areas, pockets within that city to apply certain strategies. So if I'm looking for values to go up, I'm not going to find that in a low income area.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, when it comes to the strategy itself that you're going to apply, you have to look and see what you want to do. Are you looking for what I call cash flow? Are you looking for appreciation? Sometimes the answer is just sitting in front of you to understand who you are. You know, Robert, sometimes the answer is right in front of you, your dashboard. You know, you have a speedometer, you have a gas gauge, you have an engine, how hard the engine is working. And, you know, when I was younger or in times when things are going good, I look at the speedometer because I'm going pretty fast.
Yeah.
But in times like today, I look more at the gas gauge. I want to be able to get to where I want to get to. And that's important. And if you're able to balance it correctly, the right property with the right financing, then it's really balancing your engine. Because if you balance it correctly, you can go fast enough to get the most, let's say, distance from that one tank of gas. So in tough times, you have to balance the two. And therefore, I'm not looking for a lot of cash flow. I'm not looking for a lot of appreciation. I want something that would give me at least break me even today, knowing that in the future, I'm going to get positive cash flow.
Yeah.
And it's still in an area that can actually go up as well.
Yeah.
But I have to understand that I may not get both today. I don't want to be the negative, but I want to know that both can grow in the future.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of strategy that I would do in this day and age. And you can do that locally. You can do that in a different province or in a different country. Robert, is there a more exotic strategy, more advanced that you might want to share with the folks?
Well, I don't know if it's more advanced, but it's definitely something that requires a few things in place. So if you have a primary residence, Matthew, and you've got at least one rental property, and you want to be able to pay down your own mortgage faster, something that we talked about, we can employ something today that's called rental cash damming. And what that essentially means is taking your non-deductible mortgage debt, the interest cost, and actually converting that into deductible debt.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we're doing this by basically making a prepayment on your existing mortgage.
See.
So you have to have the right type of mortgage in place. We set that up for clients where they have a readvanceable line of credit on their mortgage. They can make the prepayments on their mortgage. And we have the rental property. So where are they getting that money for that prepayment? Well, they're getting it from the rental income on that property.
I see.
Right?
Yes.
And they're taking that money. So it's not new money. They don't have to come out of their pocket for it. They're taking it and they're putting it and using that money to make a prepayment. And that'll pay down. Anytime you make a prepayment, it goes right to the principal, pays down the mortgage.
And that can shorten the mortgage by about probably 6 or 7 years then.
Sure. I mean, depending on the amount and how much you're doing it, you can actually accelerate that because so it's a 2-step or 3-step process. You can even accelerate that even faster. And what's happening is that you might ask, well, if I'm taking the money to make a prepayment, how am I paying the mortgage on that rental property? How am I paying the expenses? How am I paying and the way you're doing that is by actually drawing from the line of credit on your property and using that money. So you're creating new debt over here, and you're moving it over and using that money to pay the expenses on that one. So effectively, if you can imagine like a gas tank, one is going down and one is going up.
Right.
So your mortgage is going down, but your line of credit is going to be going up. Okay.
See.
That line of credit interest is now deductible.
Right.
Because you have now used it for investment purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the hack, let's say, of how you're getting around it. And it's completely legal in Canada. It's something that requires definitely someone who is diligent about making those payments. And it's a great plan that we do with clients who want to take that on, have the right structure, or we set it up for them. But it'll definitely get you there faster.
See, that's interesting because I've dealt with some of the major banks out there, and my main bank, now I'm not going to mention their name. I'll just say, having heard what you just said, I don't think they're treating me royally because I don't think they ever sat down with me and explained to me, that I can do some of these systems to actually get there faster. So I guess sitting with a mortgage agent or a broker who knows what they're doing in this area is not just an advantage because you can go from bank to bank and find other sources of financing, but also how to actually work with the existing mortgage to make it get paid down sooner. Is it just not in the bank's interest to do that, or?
One could say that.
Yeah.
I mean, banks are making billions of dollars of profit every quarter. The banks are out there definitely to make money, make a profit. We've got great national champions here of
Right.
banks. But mortgage brokers, mortgage agents like myself, I would say are there to save you money.
Right.
Save you money over the long term.
Right.
So it's not that few dollars that you might save on today's interest rate. It's looking at the overall plan and trying to save you money over the term of your mortgage.
I've also found that, large banks spend a lot of money with advertising. They spend a lot of money in advertising. And sometimes, even if you go downtown Toronto and you look up, some of the biggest, tallest buildings have banks' names on them. So I guess with a mortgage broker or mortgage agent, with less advertising, you literally have to work a little bit harder, go above and beyond for the client to provide them with the service because your advertising is really repeat business. What you've done with them and help them to get there sooner, faster, that generates more business for you, as opposed to just, again, having the name of your company on top of a building.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think brokers offer a great service to clients by being more available, offering more solutions, and just having more knowledge. So yeah, I think it's the way to go. Again, you're still accessing the traditional bank's lending products, but you're choosing the right one for you at the right time and looking at holistically at your overall plan.
You know what I realized?
Yeah.
Apartment buildings, especially in Ontario, they were built roughly from 1950 to about 1979, 1980. Then all of a sudden, they stopped building them.
Okay.
As a developer, I build condos. The reason why I build condos is because I'll bring the money to the table, build a condo. When I sell the unit, I get my money back.
Get it out. Yeah.
As opposed to an apartment building where I'm going to have to wait so many years collecting rent in order to pull my money back out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I am seeing, I guess, through some CMHC programs that, people are now getting back into apartments. I'm thinking maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. Are there some programs that you think are out there that's worth it, making it happen, or not?
So yes, there definitely are. We're seeing them try to influence development through policy. We've seen that through government agencies like the CMHC with the HST rebate on development. They're making tweaks to sort of make it more profitable, easier for developers, I guess, to really build some of these purpose-built rentals, but definitely not building enough. Definitely not, enough there. The costs, that's the problem. They can maybe affect some of the costs, but there's so many layers of cost in there from different levels of government that they're not all pulling the boat in the same direction.
Yeah.
Land costs, labor costs, and then development fees, those are all still way up there. They're trying to they're definitely trying to build more. I think the biggest hurdle for them is affordability.
Yeah.
Matthew?
I think so.
Yeah.
Again, for me, I'm thinking, should I go back to that realm, of building those? So I'm here and there with that. Even with my apartment buildings right now, people don't realize that when the market is going down a bit, that now my tenant profile is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Not just that I'm looking for great tenants, I'm looking for a personality type in my tenants. And the personality type is a person who is a good listener. Because if I have a seemingly more bold, more aggressive tenant, or one who's just super, super friendly,
right,
that's great. But you know what? If I have a whole building worth a whole building full of bold people, that's not going to be a good thing, because I find that people today are on a razor's edge.
Okay.
And all of a sudden I'm having more issues, right? So I'll tell you, do I want to build apartments? Maybe. I will buy because of CMHC and their programs.
Right.
But what I don't like is that when you create a program, you have to be stable about it. I'm a business owner. I'm planning for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden you change your rules midstream,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is with CMHC? Why are they changing their rules so much? I mean, for your perspective.
I think that they want to influence. Number one, they're getting a lot of pressure from politicians, from government, to make things more affordable. So that's really what they're really designed for. And some of the programs, a lot of people were focused on some of the ways to qualify for these loans through energy efficiencies and so forth, which are capital expenditures to help improve the properties, which are great,
Yeah.
but they don't affect the affordability.
Right.
And that's really what they're after. So I found that, that they were getting inundated with applications going into one stream, not the other ways of getting them done, which are through accessibility or affordability.
Right.
And they are tweaking the program all the time to try to find the right sweet spot, because they want ultimately more affordable units.
As an investor, I'm not looking for more affordable units. I have to pay back the money that I borrow. And it's very high interest rates. So I have to pay back something. So again, yes, I'm going to go for the efficiency as opposed to affordability.
Right.
But again, when I plan for efficiency and they change the rules along the way, it doesn't make life easy.
No.
But again, you're right. That does make sense to me that they are tweaking it because they are looking for affordability and they're looking for, accessibility.
Correct.
Interesting. Anything that you see in the future that they might tweak or a little bit more?
I wish that they had me on the phone. They had my number, but no, they haven't consulted me yet about it. I say that I would like to see potentially them allowing more density. I mean, they're slowly building that up, and I know that they want to. I think that's really the way it's going to have to go, is that we need more density in our cities and so forth. There's a lot of not in my backyard NIMBYism that takes place.
Yeah.
But that they're trying to fight that with funds or grants that they're trying to make it work. And I think that's really the way to go, is to get more value out of the land by allowing more density on that property. On that land, yeah.
Well, I noticed today that the employment went up in the sense that a lot of people got jobs, but based on how many people are coming to the country, there still isn't enough jobs for everybody.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the same thing with real estate.
Yeah.
And it's the way things are happening, because ultimately, I mean, I believe the population is getting older.
Right.
And with the baby boom generation, 59, 60 and above, who is the lion's share of the population retiring, I guess it's going to take a lot of the wealth with it, right? So, Robert, this has been very informative. I've learned a lot from this conversation.
That's great.
And you know what? I appreciate that. And I look forward to more of our chats. How can people contact you if they need to get a hold of you?
Thank you, Matthew. Yeah, this was fantastic. If they want to reach me, they can find me at Brilliant Investor. That's our company, BrilliantInvestor.ca. So just reach out there. It's Rob at BrilliantInvestor.ca. Happy to, start the conversation with people, how they can get on that investment track. It was fantastic.
Hey, Rob, will you come back for another conversation in a few weeks?
For sure.
Okay, looking forward to it.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much.